Okay, welcome to the SMARTcurriculum app new features video. Just to give a view of what's going on and what we've developed during the autumn of 2019. Those users will be familiar with the front screen and what they see here in this view. Nothing has changed here, except you will notice that the tab names now follow the three enhancements that we talk about, or the three dimensions of the app. That's curriculum, staffing, and finance. So the finance app has now been refreshed. So if we go there first, you'll notice that the two dimensions of cost per hour, now the first things that you see, this for the teaching staff and this for the support staff. Further down this page, we've edited the gag chart as it used to be referred to. So now staffing expenditure, you'll now see a more readable version of the chart, and it covers, you'll see the pop-ups showing as we mouse over. So teachers, admin, and support staff included. In this case, 81% of the total income. This represents income, this represents expenditure. 115% of per pupil funding, or PU if it's a state school, or per pupil funding if it's, well, it's a more generic term. So the generic term of funding per pupil. In this case, the income for this school is 70% of their total income based on per pupil funding. 30% is based on other income streams. So this would be the ORPU amount. Now that might be SEN funding, pupil premium funding, sport premium funding, rates rebate, catering funding, other government or other DFE funding would all be included within this grey area here. 80% of total income is just a broad measure, and we've set the threshold. So typically we see 80% of your total income spent on staffing. In this case, it's just slightly over that. And then in most primary schools, it tends to be slightly larger. So we've set the thresholds between 80 and 90%. So it just gives you a more visual picture of what the expenditure in staffing is looking like. And it certainly is helping schools, the feedback we've had so far on how that is working. Okay, let's move to what's changed in curriculum. Within the curriculum model, we've added some feedback and some RAG ratings, red, amber, green ratings, based on the structure that you've designed. So in this school, in year 7, you'll notice a mix of green and red. You'll notice so I'll read this one in red. It says the average class size in this block is more than one learner per group below the target class size of 28. This will have a negative impact on the average for the year group. So the average class size for the year group is lower than the target size of 28. The target size is set in global parameters, and it's been agreed in this one that it would be 28. We average, although the average is defaulted to 27, so this one's been increased slightly. So this school is intended to have slightly larger class sizes in Key Stage 3, but in these particular blocks, the 4 that you see there, that is not reached. Now, typically here, design technology has, in most schools, slightly smaller classes, so that's acceptable. But there are 2 other instances other than the one that we started with. So 3 instances in this case where the average class size is below that 28 threshold, and it has brought the overall threshold down below the average 28. If it was just the DT block here on its own, then it would not have made such a large impact. Particularly, one of the strategies that are in place here is some additional classes within the English block. So some students in this case are doing Mandarin. The average class size for that block has dropped to 18, which has a significant impact on the overall class size. We just have a look at one of the other year groups. This is year 10. The average class size for the year group is 22.3, below the 26, which is what's been requested. The average class size across all of this is lower than the 26, 22.8 is being standard. And the average class size of the option blocks, so that's these 4 blocks here, the average class size is 21. So there are 34 classes that are planned into this structure, and the average class size is well below that threshold. The red, amber, green marking is to give you an indication of what's working, excuse me, and what isn't working in terms of that desire to reach a particular level. The third development that we've been working on is in the staffing area. This is about staff deployment. Those that have worked with CJ Learning previously would have been used to a spreadsheet version, and we've controlled staffing particularly well. The overview that you've had in the initial versions of SMARTcurriculum app just work on the primary subject that a member of staff is employed for. So users have asked if they could have a way of viewing that if we deploy, say, a PE teacher to teach them English and maths, can we show what the bought and planned curriculum looks like? So what we've done with the app is to add a subsidiary subject. So the primary subject is shown. You'll see as I've moved that the chart animates, it changes, and you can see that we now have, let's say, this humanities, 550 periods planned. There are 686 bought periods. That leaves a surplus of 36. In some of the other subjects, so in maths, we've got 364 teaching periods planned. We have 400 bought, that's 36 teaching periods surplus. Now, if you notice, if I move this, English has changed here. 390 planned periods. Using their primary subjects, we have a deficit of 16 teaching periods. If I put the subsidiary subjects in, those have been drawn from elsewhere. We've taken 20 subjects from other areas, 390 teaching periods planned. Now we have 394 available for teaching. We've got a surplus of 4, and those periods have come from elsewhere. So you saw this chart rise. I'm just going to go back. You see it drop down. Where have those teaching periods come from? Other subjects where staff have surpluses, we see them move to other areas. So you can see some are moving. You'll notice business drops off completely because that's paid off between computing and business, and it's now a dynamic chart. How do we put that data in? Well, I've got a link to the data chart. So we're now moving to the data hub. So the staffing on the left-hand side, the allocated periods in the center. We're going to filter to teaching staff. So we now have an allocated range of staff there. If we now move across to the teaching area, we've got the primary subject and the primary allocation. If there is no following subject, 2, 3, or 4, then the primary allocation is equal to the allocated periods. So the member of staff's total allocation. If in this case, this IT member of staff has an allocation of 38, they are going to be delivering 18 periods of business. So we take from the 38, those 18 periods, and that leaves us with 20 periods to information technology. So this allows us to add other subjects. So if I'm going to, so let's find a PE member of staff. Now this PE member of staff has 42 teaching periods. They don't have a second subject, but now if we were to add another subject, and we're going to make them into an English teacher, that English teacher, that PE member of staff that's teaching some English, we're going to give them 20 periods. Now, if I save this, then the PE allocation will drop to 22 because we've shared their time between PE and English. So this PE member of staff, I'm going to put this person to teach some business studies, and I'm going to give them 12 teaching periods in business, and we save that. So now the PE time has dropped by 32 teaching periods, and the business and English have increased. Now, if I drop back to the staffing chart and then add those subjects, you can see we've now added some teaching periods to business. We've added some teaching periods to English, and physical education will have dropped slightly. So they've still got a surplus, but this has reduced. So hopefully these three features will have added to your capacity to get the information you need out of the app. Just going to show you some last parts, as we know that the SRMA sheets that are coming to schools to be completed over the next little while. The data pages that you see, and we've just added this data page within the finance section, and there'll be some more following, the staffing data. So the information that you would need to include in that, that data, the contact ratios, the number of periods bought, the average allocation, the cost per full-time equivalent, the amount of leadership time, percentage of leadership and TLR time, the number of leaders as a proportion of the total staffing. This allocation is the well, it is what's required in those data sheets. But the makeup of this app, you've got, the charts, the data, and then in the curriculum terms, some special features, but the data is all calculated based on the information that you've put in. We hope that it's being useful to you. If you do need more functions and there are things that you're interested in being able to do, in terms of what we're planning, well, I'll let you know in a moment, but if there are things that you need, please do let us know. Just info@cj-learning.com. If you stay with us, then you will see that there are a number of features that we are working on over the next term and 2 terms. Being able to compare data sets, people have asked that they want to show the improvements that they've made over time. So being able to compare Snapshot with modeling, that will be out before the end of this term. We are also working on a group dashboard. So some data changes, some things that I've not shown you here, so elements that are going on in the background, which will enable us to be able to compare school with school within a trust. With some overview data. We are not going to be able to compare schools outside of trust one with another, other than with a global position. But if you are in a multi-academy trust or a group of schools or a federation or a local authority, and you want to be able to compare specific schools, we are working on a dashboard that will enable you to take some of the key measures and show them together. Thanks very much for watching. We'll try to keep you up to date with what's going on. It'd be great to see you in the future. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.